Good afternoon. Three states in the upcoming November election, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, are going to vote on whether to legalize, regulate, and tax the sale of marijuana for adults 21 and over. Um, Detroit, Flint, and Grand Rapids are also going to vote in the November election whether to decriminalize small amounts of marijuana. Obviously, the legalization of marijuana is a hot topic issue right now. It affects everybody, people who don't smoke, such as myself, and people who do, obviously. Um, Through my research of this topic, I do believe that marijuana should be legalized, regulated, and taxed for adults 21 and over. And I've come across 3 points to support that. The health risk versus alcohol and tobacco, two substances that are legal for adults 21 and over, is lower. The positive effects it have on our struggling economy, and the fact that prohibition has simply not worked. I'm going to start by comparing it to two substances that are legal: marijuana or alcohol and tobacco. The Western Journal of Medicine show there's low evidence that links marijuana use to chronic illnesses, and the Journal of American Medical Association showed that lung function was not impaired for marijuana users who smoked at least a joint a day for 7 years. The Center for Disease Control reported that tobacco, on the other hand, kills more people than HIV, illegal drug use, alcohol, motor vehicle accidents, suicides, and murders combined, and that long-term use of tobacco leads to increased risk in cancer in the lung, esophagus, larynx, and oral cavities. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported that alcohol has many long-term health effects such as stroke, cirrhosis of the liver, and hypertension. They also reported in 2008 that there was 24,189 alcohol alone induced deaths. And the National Highway Traffic Safety Association reported in 2010 that there was more than 10,000 people died in alcohol-related car crashes. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Safety Association reported that there was not one reported report of someone overdosing on marijuana alone and dying. And WebMD reported that in a study done on 10,748 drivers that were involved in fatal accidents, only 2.5% had marijuana alone in the system, as compared to alcohol, which was 29%. Now they've shown that marijuana use is not as bad as people think for the users, I'm going to show why the legalization would have positive effects for everybody. CNBC reported that marijuana is a $35 to $45 billion a year business. The legalization of this would create thousands of new jobs, such as farmers growing marijuana. Paraphernalia shops would open up, more paraphernalia companies would come out, and bars, marijuana bars would come out, like in Amsterdam and stuff like that. And not only that, but it takes away jobs and money from people who otherwise would be criminals and would now be law-abiding citizens. Of that 35 to $45 billion a year that's in the marijuana business, none of it is taxed, which is the main reason why I feel that marijuana should be legal. The Office of Financial Management for the state of Washington reported that legalizing marijuana would bring in $2 billion in state tax revenue, which is obviously, I don't know how much it would translate to Michigan, but if it was even half that, it would be a big help for our struggling state economy. Jeffrey A. Myron, American economist and Harvard professor, reported that legalizing marijuana would bring in $6.2 billion in federal tax revenue, which is not much in compared to what our deficit is, but anything that helps. It would also free up a lot of government expenditures. It would free up our government officials from marijuana-related crimes, and they would go after your bigger, more violent crimes or more harder drug use crimes. Jeffrey Myron also reported that $7.7 billion in government expenditures would be cut by legalizing marijuana, $2.4 billion federally, which is, again, not as much as compared to our federal deficit, but anything helps. But the big number is $5.3 billion state and locally, which would be a big help for, especially for the state of Michigan. Now I'd like to talk about why prohibition of this is simply not work, and I'd like to give you a quote from Abraham Lincoln. He said that prohibition goes beyond the bounds of reason and that it attempts to control a man's appetite by legislation and makes a crime out of things that are not crimes. A prohibition law strikes a blow at the very principles under which our government was founded. Since 1965 to 2007, there's been 46 more times marijuana arrests in 2007 as compared to 1965. And if you want to get a smaller sample year size, from 2007, there was 3 times as many marijuana arrests since 1991, which just shows that criminals are not being deterred by these marijuana laws. There's more arrests, more than ever, so people are going to continue doing it. So maybe it's time to look at whether it's even worth it to continue fighting the war against marijuana. But also public opinion has shifted towards legalizing marijuana. Gallup Incorporated, they do a lot of polls for political issues. Reported in 2011 of the Americans they polled, 50% was in favor of legalizing marijuana versus 46% that wasn't. This is the first year that the yes has outweighed the no. And if you can see by the graph I got here, that the trend is only going to go up as the younger, more liberal minded voters continue to come out and vote, and as more of the conservative voters, for lack of better words, die. I think I've shown that the 3 main points, the lower health risk as compared to alcohol and tobacco, the positive effect have on our economy, and the fact that prohibition doesn't work, that shows why we should legalize, regulate, and tax marijuana for adults 21 and over. I've shown that it is not only best for the marijuana users, but is good for people who don't partake. Thank you.